Hey y'all, hey, welcome back to the Joyful Hustle. I hope you have been enjoying it. This week's episode, as wild as it is to say, is the final episode of season one. Um, and I wanted to do this episode solo, just you and I, because this show has become such a special corner of my life. And I wanted to close out the season with intention, a little reflection, and maybe a sneak peek at what's coming next season because there will be a season two. So whether you're listening on your commute or on a walk or while you're washing the dishes, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening, watching, and commenting. I just wanted to take a minute to reflect. So when I started the Joyful Hustle, I had a pretty simple hope, and it was just to create a space where ambition and joy are allowed to coexist at the same time. No hustle until you burn out. No, I'll rest when I'm successful. Just honest conversations about building a life and a business that feel good on the inside and not just impressive on the outside. Over the last over this first season, we have talked about a couple of big topics. We've covered mental health. We've covered the importance of building a community of support. We've talked about friendships in business. We have talked about generational entrepreneurship. Um, we talked about my journey and how I became to be an entrepreneur. We've talked about faith and leadership and how important it is to be authentically you, not just in your business, but just in your life. And so we sat down with some amazing guests. And I want to take this time to thank each and every one of my guests who came in and sat down and talked with me. I could not have done this without you. Thank you for your yes. I am so appreciative of you giving me the opportunity to share you with the world. This first season, a lot of the people that were guests are friends of mine. And when I started this, I wasn't sure who I was going to interview, how this was going to go, where was I going to find the people. And God was like, you have an entire network of women that you're surrounded by. Pull on your network. And that's exactly what I did. And so I'm grateful to each and every one of them who came on and sat down and talked with us and opened up their lives and were vulnerable. I can't thank you guys enough. But I also, if I had to choose one thread that wove through every single episode, no matter what the topic of discussion was, it would be that you're allowed to build success in a way that feels good to you, not feels good to, your husband, your kids, your friends, your family. It has to feel good to you. Not like your favorite creator on Instagram, not like the entrepreneur that you follow on YouTube, like you, who you are and what feels good to you. What I learned personally this season, um, hosting this podcast stretched me in ways that I just did not expect. Um, and I'm grateful for that. I learned that starting before you feel ready sometimes is the only way that it's ever going to happen. Now, this podcast didn't begin because I solved all of my doubts. It began because I literally sat down and was like, okay, and I hit record. I sat down. I was even nervous sending out the email invites to my guests. Like, oh my God, what are they going to say? Are they going to say yes? Are they going to say no? Are they going to be like, girl, what are you doing now? So, um, sometimes you just got to do it. And it was one of the biggest takeaways for me from episode 7. As I said before, Pastor Lakeisha Jefferson she's a friend, she's a sister, but she's also my pastor. And so one of the things that she preaches often is do it anyway. And this podcast was one of those things. I wasn't ready. I literally recorded these episodes in the summertime, last summer. And here we are it's April now of 2026. I didn't release the first episode until October. So I just kind of sat on them because I wanted it to be perfect, which leads me into the next thing that I learned was perfection can be a hindrance. So I also learned to be consistent, and that imperfection and imperfect actions beat perfection every single time. There were weeks where everything was going on, everything life could throw at me got thrown at me. During the recordings, even during releasing the episodes, even though they were already pre-recorded, it still was, life got to life. But I remained consistent. I took a break, just because I wanted to kind of give people a chance to catch up on the episodes that had happened that I had already released before we got into the second half of the season. So we had the first 4 episodes released and then the next 4. But sticking with it taught me so much about what consistency actually looks like. Um, and I feel like that's a lot of people's struggle sometimes is being consistent. I know it is for me, especially when it comes to social media, because we could talk about that a whole nother time. But consistency is something else that I learned. I also learned that you can't pour from an empty cup, and your work is better when you're well. Your work is better when your cup is full. I tried for years to pour from an empty cup, and it literally left me depleted and sent me back in therapy because I just kept trying to pour and there was nothing left to give anybody, including myself. Uh, and so this podcast reiterated for me that I have to fill my cup up. And so while I was pouring into you all with these episodes, I also was pouring into myself, interviewing the guests, listening to the things that they had to say. I came away, I walked away from every episode with another jewel or another lesson on how I could improve myself and my business. And the more I learned in this episode and during this process, also that the more I honored rest and boundaries and joy outside of my business, the more deeply I could show up for my life, for the show, and for you guys. If there's one thing I hope you've absorbed from this, listening to this, is your joy is not separate from your hustle. It's part of your strategy. Uh, you got to find the joy in everything. You have to remember how excited you were when you first started. Were you nervous? I'm absolutely sure you were, but you were also excited. There was a joy that was pushing you to keep going, and you got to keep that during the process because when you get in the middle, it gets sticky, and you be looking like, yeah, I don't want to do this no more. But finding and keeping your joy helps you to continue to hustle during the hard times. And there are a few questions that I want you to kind of sit with. Since this is the end of our first season, I want to invite you into a tiny reflective moment, nothing heavy, just a check in. If you're able to, I want you to take a breath and maybe even jot these things down and ask yourself these questions as you continue on through your entrepreneurial journey and in life. What did I learn about myself in this season of my life? Not just from this podcast, but from just the last few months of living. We are now 4 months in, almost 5 months into 2026. What have you learned about yourself in these first 4 months of the year? Where are you still hustling from a place of fear instead of joy? Are you people pleasing? Are you operating from a place of scarcity? Are you comparing yourself to other entrepreneurs? Where are you still hustling and operating in your business from a place of fear? The third thing is, what's one way that you can make your hustle more joyful just this week? Something simple. It doesn't have to be something major, something simple, but taking a real lunch break. That's something that I rarely do. One of my clients was like, "You need to eat." And I'm like, "I know," but I got back-to-back clients and they're like, "No, you need to." She literally sat and made me block off an hour in my schedule for me to sit down and take an hour lunch break. And so if she hadn't pushed me to do that, then I'm not going to lie. There are still days where I don't eat. Um, just because, life. But I do have that hour blocked off on my schedule every day to allow me the time to just eat. Sometimes I eat, sometimes I just breathe, sometimes I go upstairs and take a walk around the mall, I'll get a lemonade or something. But I get up from behind this desk for that hour for the day. So it could be something as simple as that. Maybe you need to review your pricing. Everything has gone up. Every single thing has gone up. And if you're in the beauty industry like I am, then some of your expenses have tripled and quadrupled because a lot of the things that we purchase, especially in the nail industry, a lot of our stuff comes from overseas. And so those tariffs are hitting us hard, very hard. So maybe you need to think about raising your prices or saying no to things that drain you. Whatever it is, I want you to do something. Think about something or one way, one small way that you can make your hustle more enjoyable this week. You don't need a full life rebrand. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is just adjust your life by 5 degrees and let time do the rest. So I hope this has been beneficial to you. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you grew. I hope that there were some moments that made you go, aha. I hope that there were some moments and conversations that made you go, I feel seen, because that's the point of this podcast. And so while we are pausing for a season break, I want to let you guys know that I'm pausing because I want this show to keep evolving with you and not just repeat itself. So this pause is going to give me space to listen to your feedback, refine topics that actually serve you, line up some guests who are in the arena of the topics that you guys want to discuss, not just talking from the sidelines, and get a little creative again. I want to come back with fresh energy instead of focusing on weekly episodes from an empty tank. Because what? We just talked about how important it is to refill yourself. And so that's what I plan to do also during this break. I'm also using this break to practice what I preach and to build the joyful hustle and nailed by key joyfully. We've I looked around and realized one of the things that I did during this process is I looked around and realized I wanted to shake things up a little bit. So I switched my suite completely around. I got rid of pretty much no, I literally got rid of every piece of furniture that I had in here with the exception of my pedicure chair, the chair that I sit in when I do pedicure chairs. Everything else in here is literally new. I needed a refresh. I had been using this, everything that I had in here had been in here for the last 4 years. So it was time for it to go. And so that's one of the ways that I'm infusing joy into my business. So let's talk a little bit about what's coming up in season 2. So I won't spoil it all, but what you can expect when we come back is we're going to dive a little deeper into things that we only scratched the surface on this season, like money mindset, sustainable content creation, building systems that actually support your life. We may do a few more solo episodes where I walk you through some frameworks and exercises and some real behind the scenes of what's working for me and what's not. Um, as far as guests go, I have some people in mind and some topics in mind, but I don't want to give up too much. So if there are topics that you're craving, or if there's something that you really want to talk about or you want to hear about, then shoot me an email. Leave a comment under one of the videos and let me know what you're thinking, what you'd like to see. Maybe we want to talk about burnout recovery. Maybe you want to talk about navigating a 9 to 5 while you're building a side hustle to eventually become a full-time entrepreneur. Maybe you're dealing with creative blocks, but I want you to tell me what you guys are thinking about for next season. And if you have any ideas, I would absolutely love to hear them. So season 2 is for us. It's not just for me, it's for all of us. Like I said, I learn a lot from these interviews the same way you are. Yes, I'm formulating the questions, but I have no idea what the answers are going to be. And sometimes those answers have been so good that I literally wanted to end the podcast after the answer I got to a particular question. But um yeah, it's about us. It's not just about me. So I would love to hear what you have to say. If you want to stay connected during this break, please feel free to. Just because the podcast is on a hiatus does not mean that I'm disappearing or that we're disappearing. So here's how you can stay connected. I'm working on a website. I plan to have that up by the end of April. So you can go onto the website and sign up for newsletter where we'll be sharing some updates, maybe some journal prompts, some behind the scenes footage, some bloopers, and some other things. Make sure you're following us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Um, Come hang out with me at the Joyful Hustle Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, or nailed dot by dot key on Instagram. If you want to see what's going on in my business, um, I'll be sharing some mini joyful hustle moments, like I said, between the seasons. So, like I said, if you want to go deeper, there is a resource that I'm working on to give you an opportunity to with some questions to kind of prompt you into where you should be going next or where you may want to think about going next. And lastly, truly, if an episode from this season touched you, let me know. Send me a DM, send me an email. I read them all, and your words help me shape where this show is going next. So I look forward to season 2, and I want to give you guys a huge thank you again to all of my guests, to everyone who listened, downloaded. So before we wrap up, I want to say this as clearly as I can. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for pressing play. Thank you for sharing episodes with your friends. Thank you for letting my voice be a small part of your day. There are millions of things you could be listening to, and the fact that you chose to this show, this little corner dedicated to joy and ambition, living together means more than you will ever know. This season has supported um if this season, sorry, has supported you in any way, the kindest thing you can do is share it, leave a review, leave a rating, or send your favorite episode to someone who you think could use it. It helps more joyful hustlers find peace. All right, y'all. Until next season, that's a wrap. Bye.